I've seen that step up or step out mentality. It kills classes. I'm hoping the big block with the Mustang is going to pound it in some promoters that we need to ban this car. Does that sound bad? And I think that's what we saw when I first started no prep racing. A lot of the cars were the ones that were coming out of the shed, you know, from where they used to race a long time ago, but it got progressed too far, too much money, and then they come out. There were so many times we would show up and we would race. It'd be like a $50 buy-in, and I mean we're racing for like $300 or $400, you know, and that's we'd have 16 cars, 10 cars. I mean, but it was very competitive. There again, we would spend all of our money just to go have fun. I mean, it wasn't about the money and about the, you know, getting the cash. It was about kicking their teeth in and getting the win light and holding the little $300 check.
All right, guys, we are in the middle of our ultimate rear end housing giveaway. So from now until March 1st, every dollar that you spend on our website for apparel and merchandise gets you entered in to win one of these things. Every dollar you spend from now until March 1st will get you entered in to win this, a straight center section, axles, and the Hot Boy brakes. So let's get back to the live action.
Well, welcome guys back to another edition of the podcast. Got one of my favorite people, man. Like I really like talking to you, hanging out with you. You know, and like we said before the camera started rolling, just a highly requested person to really sit down with, because I would think you're like the people's champ. You know what I mean? Like you're really, you know, you do a great job carrying yourself. You're always having a good time, which is why I watch your videos. I don't like to watch people that are having a bad time.
Right.
So regardless of the situation, all you guys are laughing and hanging out, and yeah, just someone that I really enjoy. And I think you're a really probably more of an instrumental person in this drag racing scene than you give yourself credit for.
Oh man, I appreciate it.
You do. Yeah, man. I think, a lot of people like to watch you, and, you know, you do what it takes to get there. Right. And you don't overthink it.
Right.
Which I think we're surrounded in a world of overthinkers, and you're more of a doer.
Oh yeah. We got to do it. You got to get that. You got to get going. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you inviting me on. I mean, drag racing is just a passion, right? So some people just get into it for certain reasons, and the look at me now, but I've always just had fun, man. I getting into drag racing, and it's about having a good time. It's about having fun, win or lose. We all want to win. But, you know, losing is okay too. That's part of it. And,
yeah.
You know, it just is.
Well, you do your fair share of winning too, man.
We were kind of successful, but now, you know, we wrecked that car. And so this new Saturn, our temporary car, is not, I don't think it's going to be so successful.
Well, I mean, the great thing about the Saturn is you can't dent it. You know,
that is true. That is very true. There is no dents happening.
Yeah, see, one of my best
plastic body.
My best friend Nick, that you guys see in the video sometimes, that was his first car,
right?
And we really tested out their sales pitch of the panels. I mean, that thing looked great when it went to the scrapyard. Because,
man, I'm not gonna lie though, there's a lot of metal behind that plastic.
Yeah,
you know, when I was like, yes, he's got a Saturn, and it was one of my buddies, Randy. He's like, man, I've got a car. I think it'd be perfect for you to try out, and that was like a year ago. And so I just happened to rake mine, and he was like, man, come get the Saturn. And I went and got it, and we started messing with it. And I was like, dude, there's a lot of metal in this car. And whoever built it, I think they were building it kind of to be like a bracket car.
Yeah.
But it's kind of heavy for what it is. And the wheelbase is kind of short. The motor's kind of way far out.
I mean, I think I can speak for the people. Yeah. I'm really mad about it doesn't have like the rainbow paint job anymore, right?
That was a little different. The rainbow paint job was a little different. And
I mean, it was really sad.
Did you really like it?
Oh, you should have kept it 100%. Bro, it's already a Saturn.
it was like 50-50. So, you know, some people were like, man, you got to keep the rainbow paint job. And other ones were like, man, you got to paint it. And my favorite color is like the Dookie Brown kind of burnt orange. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, the burnt orange is my favorite. But so I was like, well, we're going to do this one brown, kind of like the OG Mustang was. And it turned out okay. I mean, I like it. But it is not the Saturn. I mean, it's not the rainbow. It's not as flashy for sure.
Yeah.
Disco style.
Rick, we're going to have to figure out how to get that car for Nick when he's done with it. You know what I mean? Nick would be stoked.
Right. It'd be like, y'all got me another Saturn?
No, he would be stoked, bro. Really? Oh, you don't know, dude. He loved that car. I mean, like, loved it.
Right.
We'll have to give it to him, though, with the backseat all full of
Oh man, that's funny. And it's I think it's a 95 SC2. Apparently they had a bunch of different versions.
Oh
of
yeah,
them.
there's some Saturn enthusiasts out there.
That is funny. And what's funny is my daily driver for a while was a Saturn View. Bought it from the wreck auction for like $500 and drove it for like 2 or 3 years. And so now I'm back saying I got to go work on the Saturn. And my wife Kelly, she's like, "What? So I'm like, "Oh yeah."
That's cool.
That's different.
Well, so we kind of jumped into talking about what you're doing now, the Saturn or whatever. But let's rewind the wheels of time here.
All right.
How did what made you decide like, dude, I'm going to be a drag racer? This seems like a great financial decision.
Man, so I didn't think that through clearly.
Yeah.
I guess when you're drag racing, you ain't got no times for any other bad hobbies. Right. So, I mean, when I was 16, my first car ever, my dad bought it for me, a 84 Trans Am, and he just bought it.
Oh, that's
Dude,
tight.
it was sweet.
Did you have a mullet back then?
I had the skater cut back then, the long, it's back actually in style now. My son's got the same haircut, the skater style. But, so I wasn't into cars really, but I got the Trans Am. My dad wasn't real mechanically inclined. I didn't, grow up with cars. Had motorcycles when I grew up, had some YZ80s and YZ125s. And then, first car was that Trans Am. And so, it had a little 305 in it.
Yeah.
And then we started tinkering with it, like the little bolt-on stuff. And one of my buddies bought a Mustang, and I had just had the motor rebuilt with Charlie Taylor. He's an old Pro Stock guy, actually.
I know who Charlie
Lumberton.
Taylor is.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
And him and his brother, I think his brother's name was Jeff.
So Jeff does my dad still kind of to this day super stock engines. So
really? Yes.
Jeff lives in his shop's in Louisville.
Okay.
So it's just down the road from here.
Gotcha.
And,
See, they were in Lumberton back then, which this was in the 80s and 90s.
Yep.
So, I'm 48 years old now, so that's a long time ago.
Small world, dude. That's cool.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they built my motor, put a 3/4 RV cam in it, some Edelbrock tubular headers, sounded real good. And my buddy got a Mustang, and he just stomped me. I mean, beat the brakes off of me. It was a 91 GT. He had up the timing. And so, putting Flowmasters on it, the cold air intake, the basic stuff, the stuff we used to do back in the day. So he stomped me. And that's when I got kind of the Mustang bug. And that's when I started getting the competitiveness, in the drag racing.
So you sold
Sold it, yes.
So
Dad was not happy.
Man, that's messed up. You just gave up on the old Trans Am.
I wish I still had it back. Just gave, because I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So my cousin, he had an old Maverick with a 289 in it. So he was a Ford dude. And everybody was just like, man, you got to get rid of the Chevrolet. Chevrolet is just not it. You got to go Ford. And, now, of course, I mean, they're all the same. I mean, now I've been flying the Chevrolet Banner forever in a Mustang. But so I got me a Mustang, and we went to college, and we used to skip school to go drag race. And local racetrack, Thunder Valley, is still open now. We would go down there during the day sometimes, and they would let us in, and we would go skip class, go drag race. And I mean, that's what kind of got the bug going. And then I, quickly realized I really didn't have the mechanical ability to really work on the cars, and I was going to have to learn. And that happened after, you can't lie to your parents, but so many times that, you burnt the clutch up, or, you blow the head gas.
I got a lemon, bro.
That's what I'm just saying. So that's what, for the longest time, that's what my dad, I would squeak some money out of him that the car is messed up and I didn't know how to fix it. And then sooner or later he asked me, he's like, are you drag racing this car? And I wasn't gonna lie to him. I said, well, we're doing it a little bit. He's like, well, I don't care if you drag race. That's fine. He was like, but you're going to start paying for it. And
so if you're breaking this thing.
Yes. Yeah. And so it didn't take but a few times of paying that dude, Junior McGirt, to put the intakes on it and the head gaskets and the clutches, to where I realized my part-time college job was not going to do it. And so I needed to start doing it myself. And that's where the mechanical, we started working on stuff. Our first mechanical, big job, one of my other buddies wanted to put an intake on it. It was an 85 Mustang. And for some reason, we thought that it did not need intake gaskets. And that was a mess. It did not seal. Water
mistake.
Went everywhere. And I was like, bro, what happened? And so, but that's where we started working, getting them faster and faster. And me and my friends, man, we were just so competitive, who's faster? Let's go. And we would spend every dime on parts we had. We would drive them to the track. changed the tires, put the slicks on them. And I was a little more intense than all my buddies. And I'm still drag racing. A lot of them have, kind of not doing it as much as they used to, if they're doing it any at all. But I would get to the track and it was like and this is thinking back now, this still carries over today. I get to the track and I usually have like an hour's worth of work I got to do to the car when I get to the track. And so we would get to the track, change the pulley, put the race pulley on it, put the short belt on it, change the slicks, whatever we needed to do to go faster. And then we would break it a lot and then have to tow it home because we drove them to the track back then. Yeah. Did y'all do that? Did y'all drive the street cars to the track much up here?
Well, my background is really weird. Like right? You would think that mine would be more as a straight line as drag racing goes, but I actually really didn't like race cars that much growing up. So, and I had a Honda Civic at one point, which was really cool. I'm still a racer at heart. I love them. But yeah, Brad a little bit more. He drove some of his stuff to the track. He had some Turbo Supras, and we're actually both kind of racers. But obviously, my dad's an NHRA Superstock guy. Like, has a third gen Camaro with a 305 that runs 960s, which is crazy.
Right.
But
has he got a mullet?
Yeah, no, he's
no
just,
mullet now.
Nah, he's just got all white, man. Yeah, he's all white. Yeah, old Ronnie. But yeah, I kind of missed out on that. I actually love listening to you talk because you have kind of the great American story when it comes to drag racing. Like, I had a fast car, or I thought I did. Then my buddy beat me. And then I proceeded to set my money on fire until I beat my buddy. Yep. And that's so cool. I never really had hot cars that I drove. People ask me a lot of times, like, wouldn't you want to drive Charlie on the street? I'm like, I have zero desire to do that. Like, I love to race. I love to go to the racetrack and win. Right. Like, I love other parts of it too, but that competitive side is really what drives me, but no, that's really cool. So what from racing with your buddies, there was probably a time where you guys were all racing together, and then maybe you went to like your first event where you were racing other people, or like, how did that get into more seriousness?
Right. So when we were test and tune champions.
Okay.
I mean, that's what we just test and tuned. How could we make the car faster? So we didn't ever get into bracket racing. Back then you didn't really have a lot of heads up, drag racing.
So what year would this have been?
Early 90s. So like 90, 91, 92, 93. I graduated high school in 93.
Okay.
And so all in college. So from like 93 to 97, that's when the Holcomb Motorsports got real big. The Muscle Mustangs and Fast Forwards, and it started taking off.
It was a great era.
It really was. The Fox body was it. I mean, that's what it was. If you didn't have a Fox body at that point, you were usually getting run over. The Camaros and stuff just weren't that fast, and they had the big rivalry, with the Grand Nationals for a while. So it was wild, man, growing up then and doing the drag race, and not a lot of it was more bragging rights. It was like, I'm going to go spend every ounce of money I have just so I can outrun you. And occasionally you would pop off a little grudge race where, $50 or $20.
Yeah.
But it was never about the money like with the grudge racing stuff now. I mean, we'd go throw all our money away and, just trying to go faster than the guy that's in the lane beside us. And street racing was real big back then too. So we would, in North Carolina, which I still live now, I live outside of Raleigh. We have a track. We have probably 15 tracks within probably 3 hours. 4 hours. We have a ton of tracks. And so we could test and tune almost every day of the week. And Saturdays and Sundays, you just got your choice of where you wanted to go. But then, so you had Monday and Tuesday off. Wednesday night, you had a test and tune at one track. Thursday night at another track. Friday night at another track. And so we would hit those. I'm surprised I was able to graduate college. Seriously. Because we skipped school so much. I worked at some point in my school, I went to school at Pembroke, UNC at Pembroke, and because it was right around the corner, it was Suitcase College, stayed with my mom and dad. And then at some point I got a second shift job because I needed to make more money. So I'd go to school from 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock, go drag race from like 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, take a nap, and then go work second shift from 4 o'clock to 12 o'clock. So I had no time. Only time I had for school was when I was at school.
Yeah.
So, it was rough. But I did manage to graduate. Me and my buddies graduated, and we opened a speed shop in Myrtle Beach. And this was in 1998.
That's
and,
cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Me and my two of my buddies, and one was an architect, and the other one, I think he graduated with a biology degree, like I did. And but quickly we realized we were at the beach.
Biologists, race car guys.
Exactly. And that's what my jobby job, my real job now, the drag racing is still just a huge passion for me. I'm a health inspector. So, a lot of people don't know what I do. Then, they're like, health inspector, that's odd in your drag race. But that's what I do for my job. And so, it's one of those things. We moved to the beach, we opened the speed shop, and I quickly realized that I didn't like working on other people's stuff. I didn't want to be a mechanic, And my other buddies, the same thing. So we did that for like a year and a half, got burned out, sold my race car. And then I got my real job is what I call it, my profession that I moved into. And so that was in the early 2001.
Thanks. So you sold your car and
sold it all just because I got burnt out on it.
Yeah.
Working on everybody else's stuff. I didn't want to work on mine anymore. And so went probably a year or two, and I did not have a car. Started doing my career stuff, and then I got back into it, but street racing now, I used to see it occasionally back then. Street racing for us, where we would drive our cars to the spot. They were more like the daily driver stuff.
Yeah.
And so, we drove them all the time. We would drive it out there, 3 horn beeps and you're gone, and then you leave. And then, it evolved a little bit where people were taking their trailers out there and, sitting out beside the road for hours at a time. And, it gets a little sketchy. I mean, especially, when I have a job now that I depend on my license.
Yeah, to get there.
Yeah, if I lose my license, I can't work. I mean, I get fired.
Yeah.
And I actually I picked up that car. It was in the early 2000s. That was back when there was a couple, the website stuff. It was back when the internet started drag racing before internet was popular, of course. But in the early 2000s, there was a couple websites, Turbo Mustangs, and it turned into something else. I don't remember what it turned into, but it was turbocharging Mustangs is what it was, 302s. And I had a carburetor. And so I started the blow through route.
Yeah.
Blowed up so much stuff. Ended up twin turbo, nitrous on it to make it spool up. Ended up having a diesel turbo off of a TV80. It was a TV80 102 off of a Detroit diesel. That was one of my first turbos.
That's cool.
And so it came from legit from the transfer truck wrecking yard. And so it was odd. And that's how I got so I was the only one doing turbo. And that's how I got the nickname Turbo John. They were like, well, that's the dude, the idiot that's got the turbo car that never runs right. So, that's how it was.
Well, and I think it's really cool to listen to you talk and talk about the different generations of drag racing. It's like, when you guys were in the mid 90s, man, the amount of information you didn't have, right? Like you guys were just trying to figure it out.
Right.
Would you go to the library and get a book?
There was nothing. That's right. Muscle Mustang and Fast Forward once a month, what's the hottest thing?
Yeah.
And, and of course the information just wasn't out there. I mean, that's back when you had, Racing Jason and Stormin' Norman, and those guys were the fast guys that were breaking into the 9s and the 8s. We were, struggling our street cars. I mean, my street car, I had it was a 93 coupe at one point. It was EFI and it went 1220s on 5-speed. That was hauling butt. I had one of the fastest ones around. They put a little nitrous on it on the button, and and it would go. I mean, high 10s.
Yeah.
I mean, it was wild though. But we used to street drive them, and now it's so easy to make horsepower now. But back then
I think
it was
the knowledge is you can
shared
find
knowledge.
I think people take that for granted of how much you can just learn. And I think when you kind of you sold your stuff, you got back into it, you got your name, which is cool.
Right.
There was more information at that time, right? So that was right when the internet was, you could go on the forums and
that's
do
when
all
it was
that
taking off. The internet was getting popular, and the websites were coming and people were sharing information. And being carburetor blow through, CSU out there now in California, super good dude. We got into drag racing about the same time, as far as doing the blow through stuff. And there were some things, his boost reference power valves, they weren't in existence. So that's why we were struggling, is we couldn't spool up a turbo because it would go so fat. We had so much jet.
Yeah.
But man, we burned up so much stuff just not knowing about fuel pumps. And, we were reading EGTs, and, it would be too fat and the EGTs would be really high. So we would think it was lean, and you add more fuel and it get worse. I mean, but the information wasn't there. So we were, blowing stuff up, breaking stuff, and other people were doing the same thing. And then the internet really, it picked it up so fast. I mean, and by people sharing what not to do.
Yeah, like, hey, I did this. It was bad.
It didn't work. It did not work. And that's what, there are certain things that just ain't going to work. And so that was one of the things that, I really enjoyed finding my way with helping people. Hey, man, I've made that mistake. No, that Holly blue and that Holly black pump is not going to work. I can tell you it's not going to work in a boosted application because I tried it and blowed head gaskets again. So don't do it. And then, of course, usually they do it anyway. And then they go, oh, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, it was a bad move.
Right.
So,
so it's been wild, man. And I had that car. It was I finally decided I was going to sell that one and move on and go to something else. And I sold that to a dude. Took him, any race car you're trying to sell. Just a tip for anybody: if you need to sell a race car, loosen the front end up, do a great big wheelie, it'll sell.
Yeah,
I mean, wheelies sells race cars. So I did that. Sold that race car. Sold it to a dude. He had a driver. They were street racing it. And he ended up, he couldn't never drive it. The driver was kind of scared. It was his first turbo car. And so they hired me to go out there one day. He's like, man, I'll give you like $50. Come drive the car. And so went out there, farted around all day, finally got the race off almost.
And this was on the street.
This was on the street. And so now I've already been working my regular job for like 5 years now. So I'm I'm like, okay, this is the career choice I want to do. I'm still going to drag race. That's my hobby. It's really fun. And so we showed up, we started to do our burnouts, and cop come. The road was probably 6-7 miles long, so we could see him come around the corner. And dude, it scared me to death because I was like, we haven't raced yet, but we were about to. And so we done the burnouts. And so I just took off going to the car. I was luckily stupid enough, I guess, or smart in this case. We parked the trailer down at the finish line, past the finish line. So I cranked up the car. They cut off and they were just going to sit there and wait for him. I was like, I'm not going to wait for him. And so I got going probably 70, 80 mile an hour, killed the power on the car. So when I went by him, the headlights were on, but the car wasn't running. He just assumed it was a normal car, got it up on the trailer. And that was the last time I ever did any street stuff. And so it's like, that was it. It scared me to death. I was like, okay, I got to wait 30 years before I can go on the street again.
Yeah.
And, it's just, but street racing, man, is just, I know there's a lot of people that do it. BJ, I want to go to the pad so bad I can't stand it, but it's just too risky for me.
No, and I get that, man.
Yeah.
And I'm a lot of the same when it comes to that. Like I think the pad looks sweet, right? I do. The telephone poles on the side.
That's a little sketchy.
Yeah. And I think there's a level of sketchiness on anything that you do. But man, I think as you get a little older, you're like, man, I got a lot to live for.
That's right.
Right. Not that I don't want to be kind of sketchy and go fast and do this stuff, but there is, I've learned, there is a time and a place, and I guess that's just me getting older. Right.
Right.
So yeah, it's just one of them things. But so you got rid of that single turbo car. I guess it was single turbo, right?
That was a twin at that time.
Twin.
Yep.
Okay. And then you were building another car, or?
Yep. Ended up actually the OG car. So I guess that was 2006, 2007.
So your goldish car.
Yep. The gold brown one. Bought it. That's an ex-highway patrol car. It's a North Carolina highway patrol car. And anytime I tell people that, they're always cringe. They're like, you destroyed a highway patrol car. Because apparently that has a little bit more value in the Mustang world.
Gotcha.
I did not realize that.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I was like, okay, well, whatever. But so I started racing that one. It was somewhere between 05 and 07. And so it went back single turbo. Or did I put twins on it? Shoot, man, I can't remember. Had so many renditions of it. So single turbo or twin turbo, and it had a 302 in it.
So still small block Ford.
Still small block Ford. And then I broke the motor. And so then that's when I went small block Chevrolet. My buddy Brian, I had just met him in the early 2000s. He's like, dude, I got a small block Chevrolet. Let's stick in. It's got good stuff in it. And that was my gateway into the small block Chevrolet world. Never forget building that, him and Keith were back there. And they're always been diehard small block Chevrolet people. A motor is a motor, but there's certain things you have to do.
Yeah.
I mean, like installing the rear main seal. I was like, well, how do you do this? I mean, so it was fun. It was exciting learning a new engine. And at that point I had, had realized that I've got some mechanical ability. I had C4 transmissions, and I've always been, my goal has always been to do more with less, spend as little money as possible.
Yeah.
And everybody's on a budget. Some people have bigger budgets than others. And I always just try to spend as little as I can. I love buying used parts. Even now, I mean, I'll buy used parts before anybody in their mind would even think about using some stuff. But most of the time it works out. Sometimes it doesn't. But, just getting the cars going, got that one going, and it made us roll small block Chevrolet. And then we started I guess it was when did Radials kick off? 2007, 2008?
Yeah.
That's about that time.
Yeah.
We had a local series called True Street, Real Street. And it was real similar to what Ultra Street was. And so Ultra Street was a little faster. And so we did that. I was real successful. There for a little while, I got some weight breaks for having iron heads. And then I got weight breaks for having blow through carburetor. But we were getting better, sharing information, and things were getting faster. And we were really, really successful at the local level.
Back then when you were racing that, like you said, it's an Ultra Street style class.
Right.
How many turbo cars were there?
It was growing. Nitrous was still predominant, but it was growing because people were seeing turbo cars were easier to work on. They were cheaper. It's pay me now or pay me later. Nitrous is generally a little cheaper to get into at the beginning, but turbo costs a little bit more up front, but it's a little bit cheaper to race. We could run E85, so that's when E85 was taken off. So we were racing, once we got the cars built, we were racing for nothing. Nitrous back then was still, $3, $4 a pound, but then you got the C16 or the C23, E85 and blow through carburetor. I could race for nothing. That's back when there were so many times we would show up and we would race. It'd be like a $50 buy-in. And we're racing for like $300 or $400, and that's, we'd have 16 cars, 10 cars. But it was very competitive. There again, we would spend all of our money just to go have fun. It wasn't about the money and about the, getting the cash. It was about kicking their teeth in and getting the wind light and holding the little $300 check.
Yeah. And I think even if you look at that time frame, like even the heads up stuff, there wasn't really anybody paying any big purses.
No. Oh yeah. No. You would like John Sears and stuff, even like X275, that was, just kicking off real good. And that's back when X275 was, 530s, 540s. And $100 entry fee and the purse was nothing. $1,000 a win or something. It'd be very, very cheap. But, the structure stuff has changed a lot in the payouts, but it was always, the tracks generally were running the events. And so, it's about the track making some money and being, a business model. And whereas now you seem like you have a lot of promoters, they rent the track and it's about the promoters making the money. So the business model has kind of changed a little bit for the tracks and the promoters and the racing in general. Obviously now, when I started no prep stuff, 4 years ago now, 5 years ago, that $300 buy-in, man, it was, I'll never forget the first time I did a $300 buy-in. It was my first dig or die at 710. And it about broke me though, because you got the gas money. It's a $500 weekend. Yeah. And it just gets expensive going from a test and tune champion to, even running in the local real street, true street stuff. And we did end up eventually adopting the Ultra Street rules, but that kind of was the downfall because not everybody could keep up. And we were crying, as everybody said, the more budget cars. We were trying to get like spec turbos. We wanted like a spec S400 75 millimeter turbo, and nobody wanted to do that. And we kept hearing a common theme that I heard a lot was step up or step out. And that is one of the things. It's a bad theme to have or a statement to make. Step up or step out. It's accurate, but what happens at some point, everybody steps out and then the class dies. And that's what ended up happening. So the local Real Street, True Street stuff died. We were running the original, the 275 before the pro stuff come out, and it was all the tread.
Yeah, like
I don't
forget what it was
the
called.
number was.
Like an ET Street R.
Yeah, and it was at that point the tire was more limiting. And
yeah,
so
the tire wasn't near as good.
Right, that's right. And so you could, I mean, we did end up going like 520s, 530s with a 76 millimeter S400. But that's about the time that, you know, all the turbo companies, you know, trying to get a leg up on everybody, they start, you know, cheating up the turbos, and the rule makers let it slide. And it's that downward slope that never ends. And then it's, I mean, it just,
well, because it's a hard thing, because you don't necessarily want to get away in the way of progression,
right?
But you do need, you need some stuff in place, right? And the turbo stuff, I think a lot of times it was, turbos really weren't a predominant power adder in drag racing, even like when you were saying, right? Like there's more nitrous cars. So I think the turbo stuff in general, people probably just didn't really know how to tech them. There's just a lot of didn't know what it was.
That is 100% true. And the tech aspect is, and it takes time, it takes resources. And most of the people at that point in time, the people doing the tech, they're not getting paid anything. They're doing it because they love the sport.
They're just a volunteer.
Right, they're a volunteer. That's right. So, I mean, it's one of those things, it is hard. And, and everybody, wants a leg up a little bit to where they could have a little bit of an advantage. And it is what it is. And like you said, I mean, that's when the tapered wheels started coming in on the turbos, and then they started noticing what it was. But I mean, once that cat's out the bag, then you've got the hard aspect of, okay, well, now we got these weights and a nitrous car. I mean, nitrous cars, I mean, they're so, it's just hard to make power with nitrous. And so they would always need to be a lot lighter or a lot more, jet ability or foggers. And it was hard, man. And then, of course, the turbo cars, you get in that boost air in the very beginning of the season or the end of the season, where they really, really make a lot of power. And in the summertime they get donkey stomped by the nitrous cars. It's hard. I thank God I wasn't ever in the rules committee. It was hard.
Yeah.
And it still is. I mean, they struggle.
So you raced the local Radial stuff,
right?
And then you went from that to the no prep. Is that kind of how it went?
Yeah. So we went there, and that step up, step out, statement stuff. I stepped out and started back doing test and tune stuff. And then at some point along the way, the no prep kind of hit. So I did. I guess we did the local small tire stuff probably to 2014, 2015. I went to a couple of Ducks races, and did Ultra Street, but they were just getting fast, and being on a budget, being more budget oriented. I mean, for the longest, I didn't get my first enclosed trailer until it's probably been 6 years ago now. I was open trailer life, like open trailer, Mustang on it, golf cart slid sideways in front of the Mustang.
That's cool.
And so it worked though, and it was my budget. That's what I had to do. And
that
so
trailer don't win no races, bud.
No, it don't. Absolutely. And so it was funny though. I mean, because there's also a little bit of I like the fact, when you see the car rolling in on an open trailer and these other people with bigger budgets, and they're like, crap, man, there's John, and that's always a good feeling, when you can roll off the trailer and, know that you can go pretty fast. I had a good group of guys with me. All my friends that have always helped me, it's amazing. It's not something you can do by yourself. And so it takes everybody helping and pitching in, but man, we were just sharing information, and we had a good group of guys. And Brian, he's my buddy that, at the shop that just burned down, unfortunately. It was terrible. But he's kind of the hub. So, we'd have a lot of people coming to his shop, and we would all share information, and we all got faster. And it's just amazing going to that. But at some point along that way, the Radial stuff, my next evolution was going to be, okay, well, we got to do something with X275, or we got to go into a faster Radial class. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm done with radials. We need to try, the no prep stuff. And when we got to the no prep stuff, it was wild, because we went from slicks, in the early 2000s, all the wishy-washy skating around, and then the radials come. I'll never forget, I told everybody, I'll never put slicks on again. I'll never have slicks again. And then the first no prep race, I actually went with a Hoosier bracket radial because I wasn't willing to make that
You didn't
jump.
want to go back. I mean, there's a lot of people who feel like that, man. They drive so much better.
They drive so good.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go back. And so I went to the Hoosier bracket radial, done really well. That first race, we were at 710. Have you ever been to 710 on the backside? Really, that's where Digger Die used to be. Really smooth asphalt, the whole track. And so it was pretty fast. Back then, I don't remember which turbo I had on it at that time. I think it was a 98 or 88, but it was a GT55 chassis turbo. But we got down to 5 cars our first race ever. First no prep, first arm drop, flashlight.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the first one, and we got down to 5 cars.
So you were hooked after that.
Dude, I was down. And when I pulled into the track, it's first, you see KC Max and you see all these dudes. Jake Boswell had the nerd. And I've been doing my research, trying to, prep for my first no prep race. And dude, when I pulled up in all those cars, man, they were beat up. They got dents all in them. And I was like, dude, these are my people. I was like,
I've been looking for you guys.
I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Because we went from the radials where, the looks matter. You're shining up your car, making it pretty, and you're fast, to where, man, we don't care about the looks. Half of them didn't even have a front end, And I was like, man, this is the first one I was hooked. 3:00 in the morning. I don't remember who all was down to 5. I remember Poppy with the little Toyota.
Yeah, little Toyota. Yeah,
yep.
That thing's cool.
Yes, he was one of the finals. It was the 5. It was me, him, and 3 others. And it was so cold. It was like 30 degrees, and we split the pot up because it was so cold. And I was like, dude, that was my first $300 buy-in, and I was scared to death, man. But we were able to make some money and split the pot. I think we had 60 some cars or 70 cars. I mean, it was a lot of cars.
Yeah, it's a pretty good amount of money too.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. So I was like, dude, this is my people, and that's where it's never looked back from no prep from that point.
So when you went to that first race, did you already have a YouTube channel or?
Yeah.
When did the YouTube?
Did I have the YouTube then? Yeah, I had to have. Yeah. I had. Yeah, because I was prepping for it. Like, so I was sharing data. So that was back in 2019, 2020.
Okay, so you had your YouTube channel when you were still on radials, and then they got to see you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. If you go back to my very beginning, we started the YouTube channel in 2019. That's when the no time stuff was coming. I don't remember my first video. The wife had always told me that I needed to start a YouTube channel. And I was like, I don't have anything to say to anybody. Clearly, she knew me better than me.
Yeah, she had an idea. Yeah.
She had a pretty good idea. And my first video ever, it's crazy going back, looking at those. I went back and looked at some of them. I mean, it sucked. I'm an iPhone YouTuber now. I still do everything with my iPhone, but the stabilization's not quite there. But I had went really, really fast. Went like I got a ticket that said like 451, 452. And then I had went faster than that though. And I didn't get a ticket. But according to the data, the Holly, it should have been like a 445, 447.
Yeah, it's rock and rolling.
It was flying back then. It wasn't that long ago. It was 2019, 2018. And so, but it was on low boost. And when I say low boost, it was like on like 16 or 18, 20 pounds of boost. And I was like, man, that's got to be, everybody was like, you're crazy. That motor's not that fast on that little boost. I was like, I'm just telling you what the data says. And so what had happened, I had a 3-bar map sensor, one of the MSD ones, at whatever boost level that was, 16, 18, or 21. I can't remember what it was. It would separate. And so it would separate and the boost would stay on the data log, it would stay low, but it was actually making like 40 some pounds of boost. The whole time I thought I was on low boost. And I was like, well, let me show you why it didn't work. But the Holly did its thing, so it was fine. It just was giving a crap ton of fuel. But so that was my first video ever for YouTube. And then we did some radio stuff and we worked on Randy's car a lot. I think he had a blower car. I think it was the blower on it when we first started the YouTube. I don't remember though. I need to go back and look. But man, we've gone through some different, combinations, but for the most part, my small block Chevrolet has been it, tweaking and refining. And we used to see people, and you still see it now. People do it all the time now. They'll go and make wholesale changes. where all they needed was they're just barely missing the tweak.
Yeah, I agree with that a lot.
You know, and people will change a whole combination, and all it needs is just a little tweak.
Well, I honestly think, you know, I've had this conversation with a couple people, but I think if people actually line their car out on a radial, like that would really help them because they could see the potential of the combo.
Right.
It's easier to read the converter. It's just, there's a lot of stuff that it's just the data's easy to read because it's so smooth.
Right.
Right. Where on the no prep stuff, it's just a bit different. Right.
Right.
And yeah, you see so many people that scrap whole combinations that, you know, that or they spend money or they don't need it. Like that's, you know, I spend a lot of time on the phone with people trying to get them to see, like, I mean, you saw how many 8.8s are out there getting ready to ship. It's like, you know, man, if your choice is to buy a 9-inch or buy an 8.8 and a really good set of shocks, like buy the 8.8 and get the good shocks. Right.
Yep.
You know, like it's so, and you're great at that, you know, picking and choosing what you need. But I kind of want to hit on the YouTube a bit more just because. So your wife told you to do it,
right? And
then you did it,
right?
And what made you keep doing it?
It's fun, man. The interactions with people. I've always been, even way before the YouTube. We talk about sharing data, and you know, people have always come to me and said, "Well, hey, what do you think about this?" And you're banging ideas. And it's always been, I've always loved helping people make their combinations faster. Even when we're racing them next round, it doesn't matter. I want to outrun them at their best. Yeah, that's right. I don't want to beat them when they're down. So, you know, just helping people do better. And it's just always been nice. And then the YouTube, the feedback, people seeing us work with, you know, junk and going out there and doing pretty well. It's been wild, man. The YouTube, I love the interactions with people coming up, and it took a very long time for me to get over hearing my country slang on my, you know, editing my video.
Yeah,
this little that is hard, right? When you first hear yourself, you're like,
"Oh, I hate my laugh."
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it never ends. You know, go ahead, give us a laugh. Come on, man, do it. He's like,
yeah, I hate hearing it. I'm like, oh, that guy, he sounds terrible.
But you know, it doesn't. And so once I got over that. And, you know, and then the people, you know, saying, "Hey, man, I watched your video and I really enjoyed it and it helped me." That's the reason. I mean, it turned into a great hobby, and my friends, we've always, you know, we should have started a YouTube channel when she told me, like in, you know, when we were real street racing, like in the 9 and 10, I mean, 2009, 10. But I didn't, because we've always recorded our runs for data. You know, all my buddies, they always record the same shot so we can see, you know,
what's happening,
what actually is going on with the car. And so we've always got that data. We just didn't always have the talking aspect of it, telling people. But yeah, man, it's wild. It's been crazy. And the channel, you know, when I started it in 2019, John Dock, you know, his YouTube channel, he gave me a big spike. He had like 60,000 subs or something. And so I'd talked to him a few times at the track, and didn't really understand what YouTube was at that time. That, you know, okay, well, people will follow you, and, you know, and you build a channel. I've always watched YouTube, but it wasn't like I wouldn't follow certain people. And so he gave me a nice little pep talk, and gave me a little spike up in subs. And then I was like, oh man, this is pretty cool. And then people just coming and telling me they enjoy the content and they like what we're doing. I mean, it's just amazing.
It's cool, man.
YouTube is really cool.
It is really cool. I think it's I mean, I think it's about killed real reality TV, because like why would we not watch exactly what I want to watch?
No, that's right.
So yeah, that's cool, man. And so with, you know, now you've been doing the YouTube stuff for a while. You're always the one thing I did want to talk about was you're always really passionate about trying to preserve where no prep is and right. You know, where it's going. And is that because just of what you've seen, you know, through your history of racing, and you kind of don't want history to repeat itself?
Absolutely. That is 100% it. I've seen that step up or step out mentality. It kills classes. And because at some point, you know, it becomes a money game, you know, and not everybody has the money to continue to step up. Yeah. And so that's where, you know, small tire, we had some good passionate debate. I've done a couple videos that, you know, I really get fired up about. You know, I feel small tire needs to have a factory firewall, factory floor rules. That's where it started. And I understand progression, but I also understand, you know, not everybody is going to build a full tube chassis car. And, you know, and so what's going to happen is the big fields that we have at some point soon, unfortunately, in my opinion, hopefully I'm wrong. I could be wrong, but at some point soon, the full tube chassis purpose built cars are going to make it where the normal budget guys, the people that have a Fox body Mustang with, factory location stuff for the most part, they're not going to be able to compete. And those big payouts depend on those people showing up.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you say, okay, we got $300 buy-in and then you got entry and gas, and it turns into a $500,000, $750,000 weekend, they're not going to continue to do it. And maybe there needs to be 2 levels of it. And that's what, okay, we got an outlaw style and then we got the OG style where you can revert back. My Mustang that we're building and the Saturn, they're full tube chassis cars. The Saturn's not going to do anything. It's not got the right bias to be what I need it to be. But I'm hoping the big block with the Mustang is going to pound it in some promoters that we need to ban this car. Does that sound bad?
No, I think that, I don't know. I think a lot about this, right? Because I mean, it's my hobby,
right?
It's a career. It's how I make a living. Like, I need people to, the long and short of it is, we want people to buy race car parts because that helps support my family, all the things. And I do, and I even dabbled. Me and Brad have dabbled in promoting and putting on races, and I'm glad that we've done all of it. I think it's given us a decently well-rounded view of, like, we were a promoter. We're also a race car parts supplier. Right. We're also, we've built cars, so we have a pretty fair understanding of chassis rules. Right. And then all the different hats that we've wore in this industry. And I think there is a lot of people that are upgrading their stuff. I think that what I've seen is it is a hard thing, right? Like, because right now, radial racing used to be the cool thing, right? So like you would have 60 or 70 cars that would go to Ducks race to try to qualify for X. Right. They knew that they weren't going to make it, but they went for the experience because it was a great experience. And I think that, to me, like, I get the rule side of thing, and we could talk about that forever. But I think what we really, in my opinion, what we really should concentrate on is people's experiences. Right. Because if you go, I mean, look at like what Jeff's done at War in the Woods, which teaser alert, Jeff's going to be on the podcast in a couple of weeks. So that'd be great. Yeah, you got his shirt on, which will be a great conversation. But people go there because of the atmosphere, what it is, and the experience, right? So I think if we can have some more of those experience races, that you don't care as much if you go and you're whatever, it's maybe a bigger buy and whatever, but you go because you wanted to go. Right. Because I think the rules is like what I've seen just since we came into it, like when we threw Charlie together the first time, which would have been about 3 years ago, right? It had a 484 600-inch big block on nitrous, and it's pretty basic car, and we build cars for a living, but we're like, this thing will work for how fast we needed to go to be competitive at this. Right. And obviously it's rapidly changed. And I think a lot of that is because it's the cool thing to do now, like, that's right. And like for me, dude, like I love radial racing. I love going to Georgia, but man, I have 3 kids. So if I go to Duck Steel, I'm gone for a week.
Radial week.
Yeah, radial week.
Duck week, that's what they call it.
So, and there's a lot of that. So I think like for people, if I'm picking on myself just as a racer, there's a lot that really appeals to me, of being able to go and get in, get out, come home. I love that.
That's right.
So I think the hard thing is when you start talking about rules, like you were talking about spec turbo, or like, with Ultra Street or whatever, like if that changes every year, well, then you're buying a $4,000 turbo every year. So it's like, there's like good and bad to both of it. Whereas like now no prep is kind of the wild, wild west. And if you're looking at, there always has to be the top level class.
No, that's right.
And to your point, like, that's always in our world. If we go by the current names that we have, it's just going to be small tire. Right. There's going to be unlimited small tire. What happens under that, I think, is real important. And I think
that's where what needs to, if small tire's gone, I mean, it's that ship has sailed. And, and it depends on the surface too. It depends on where you're at. I mean, the surfaces that you see Mickey Thompson and Hoosier coming up with better tires.
Yeah.
I mean, so everything is progressing, which progression is good, but you have to, I guess you have to make sure that you don't progress so fast, so rapidly that all the small folks get left behind and they just put them in the shed. And I think that's what we saw when I first started no prep racing. A lot of the cars were the ones that were coming out of the shed, from where they used to race a long time ago, but it got progressed too far, too much money, and then they come out. But it is complicated though. I mean, it is complicated.
Yeah.
And I know Bill and them from the Street Race channel. At some point, they were talking about two classes, like a small tire, unlimited, and then some type of the stock suspension style or back half only. No, I mean with the firewall and floors being stock or something. I don't remember how they were wording it.
Yeah.
But I mean, at some point, the dilution. We only have a pool of so many racers. Right. And I know we're going to start getting some like from X275.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
And, because like you said, it's the hot thing right now. And I know Duck's hating it. I mean, he's, posting all the time on Facebook, which I guess promoting them, even talking about them. But, but that's one of the things. I mean, you have the people that are stepping away from how many Radial versus the World cars are they going to be out there this year? I mean, Duck's in a couple of weeks. Not many.
Well, I think this is weird. So I actually think that there's a little bit of a resurgence of Radial stuff.
Oh, you think so?
I do. Well, this is why I think that. So, like, the cool thing with Radial stuff is it is tenured. And what I mean by that is, like, we've had these same 5 or 6 classes now for a long time.
True.
So, and that's what No Prep's really missing is a standard. Mm-hmm. Right. So like if a guy decided 5 years ago that he was going to build an Ultra Street car, well, guess what? Ultra Street's still there.
Right.
And the rules, they may have changed some.
Slightly.
But it's not.
The basic, right?
It's the basic car is still a great car. It could be, you might have a turbo change, stuff like that, which I think for the average guy, that gives him a great target to build to.
Right.
Where like with No Prep, the target's always moving. And like when I see people build cars, they don't have any thought into them. And what I mean by that is like, like they're a guy that, with, like you said, everybody has a budget and, they're a turbo small block guy or their team is a turbo small block team, right? It's a great combination for the money, all those things. Well, then the next thing they want to do is what do they want to do? They want to get the car light.
Right.
So then they buy cheap composites. Right. And they put these cheap composites all over this car and then they probably threw away what they take off of it. And then they look at the rules and they're like, man, I could have ran True Street, but I did all this to this car and I don't have a desire to put it back.
Right.
Which I think there's a lot of that.
Oh, yeah.
And I think with Radial stuff, like the thing that we've seen, because we're still very heavily involved in Radial racing. Right. I mean, there's actually most of the cars in our shop are Radial cars.
Right.
What's cool with the Radial fields right now is you don't see the super large fields, but what you see is a really quality field.
Oh, yeah.
Like, 16 to 20 cars that are really, really good. Radial versus the World doesn't have that many, but like if you're looking at Pro 275, LDR, X, Ultra Street, even Limited 235, there's a pretty healthy field of cars and they're really competitive.
And I know I don't follow it a ton. I mean, we're radio racing with Randy's car.
Yeah.
But we're doing mostly like the no time stuff.
Yeah.
But like a lot of the Pro 275 and the Limiteds are the original Radial versus the World cars. They've had to step back because of the Radial versus the World progressed to where they couldn't keep up. But I think you're right. I think No Prep needs levels. I mean, obviously the small tire is the top level.
That's our RVW.
That's right. It's Radial versus the World. That's right. And so the limited rule package, when you have that, and when you're on a real sketchy surface like backside Rockingham or backside Darlington, you're not going to, I don't know that you're ever going to see, I'm going to try my best, but I'm going to see if I can outrun Jarrett and them guys with the stock Mustangs.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys are fast, but they are basic stuff. But now when you move that same field and now you take it to like War in the Woods or a front side race, I mean, it's so much different. And then that's where I think the top tier, really outshines the second tier and the third tier, of course,
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
it should. But I don't know. Maybe you should head up the rules committee to do us like 3 or 4 classes.
Well, I actually think so.
Somebody needs to.
Me and Tom Gunner, well, Jimmy Dale, as the world knows him. Well, like I talk to Jimmy Dale a lot,
Right.
and in a couple weeks we're going to Lights Out, and I think Jimmy Dale's coming. He's going to run limited 235. Well, it's limited street now, which is a class that Brad and I used to race.
Right.
It's a great class, man. So I sent him. I either sent him the rules sheet or he looked it up online. And him and John Sears have become a bit of friends, and he called me, Jimmy Dale did. He's like, bro, this rule sheet is hard to read. And like limited street, honestly, is like one of the easier ones.
Right.
And he's like, there's so many rules.
Right.
And he's like, you couldn't hand this to a no prep guy. His head's going to explode. and
It's true.
And regardless of what the
Right.
world thinks about Jimmy Dale, he's a smart dude. And like, he's followed drag racing for a long time. So
Right.
like, he's not a spring chicken.
Right.
So to read through that was really complicated to him. But what I'm getting at is like all these Radial classes, they actually have already done the hard work for us.
Right.
Where like John's done a fair job of trying to figure out the potential of each combo. There's
Right.
weights for each combo. There's all these things. We actually already have a template if we wanted to use it.
Right.
But the problem is
Nobody wants to tech.
no.
Right.
And it's because it is like you now, instead of, on my promoter side of things, if the entry fee is $300, everybody wants that $300 to go exactly to the pot, right? Which, okay, I get that. But now if you're like, man, I really want to divide this up and we need tech, we need this. It's like, well, man, you can't expect a guy or guys to stand there all day and pull turbo covers, do this, do that, man the scales, all that stuff. So guess what? Your entry fee is probably still going to be $300, but maybe only 150 of it's going to go to the purse or whatever. Because if you want it to grow up,
Right.
they're
And that's exactly what it used to be back in the day. We never had 100% payouts back then. I mean, you would pay, the $100 or $50 or whatever the entry fee was.
yeah.
But you had a set purse before you got there. It wasn't dependent. And so if the promoter hit it right or the track hit it right and they had, 25 cars there, they would make more money. But you knew what you were racing for when you got there.
Yeah.
And that's what, and no prep is the new big thing, man. And it's just, there's a no prep race every weekend down there where we're at.
Yeah.
And
Same.
so we have to pick and choose where you're going because it usually is 100% payout. And so there again, that pool of racers, if you try to split it up too much, then you have 5 people for the big class and 5 people for the slower class, and then 4 or 5 people for the super slow class.
Yeah.
And so then nobody's racing for anything. So, I mean, it's complicated. I mean, I don't know what the solution is.
Well, and I think a lot of it would be just people actually really working together and like there's just far too many races also.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
there's way too many races.
Right.
And to your point, like if you can race a few hours from home and there's multiple options on a weekend, it's like, well, man, I actually think drag racing's more healthy than it's ever been. There's more, there's more cars being built. There's more people that want to do it. It's just because it is so popular, there's just so many options, which, makes it hard. And that's the other thing with the Radial stuff, which is really cool is like Duck Steel, like the Radial Outlaw series is really the only game in town. Like you got NMCA that has a little bit of stuff. Like you can go race Extreme Street and stuff, which is Ultra Street. But, that Radial Outlaw deal, they got 6 or 7 races. He's got them prime time for when the Radial stuff's good, when it's a little cooler outside. Like, man, that's healthy. That's great. Like, if you want a Radial race, guess what? A couple weeks, you have the opportunity to go Lights Out. You know how many Radial races are also going to be on that weekend? None.
That's it.
That's
Everybody's
it.
going to be there. That's right.
And so I think like some of the stuff that I think people think is bad is actually good.
Right.
It's
wild, man. I mean, unfortunately, like you said earlier, I mean, we do repeat, and so we'll see how it goes, man. I mean, there's just a lot of no prep racing, and I mean, I want people to continue to race, and that's what I'm scared of is that if it progresses too fast on the no prep side, that we're going to see the fall off, but then there's going to be the comeback.
Yeah.
So that's just how it's going to go. It's going to go up and down. But it's crazy, man. Drag racing has been here forever. It's not going anywhere.
No.
I mean, there'll be complete different renditions. I'll never forget when we first went from slicks to radials. I was like, those idiots on radials, what are they thinking? I mean, that's stupid. And then same thing I said about the no prep. What are those idiots on no prep surface? They're stupid. And here I go, you know?
Yeah.
So whatever the next trend is past no prep, which they all tend to have about a 5 to 8, 10-year life. And then they'll kind of fall off a little bit. Radials have stuck around a long time, though.
Yeah, well, and I think with the radial stuff, you have enough people that have the mentality of like, man, I just don't really want to go back to a slick, which
right.
I've talked to a lot of guys that are like that. Like, I just don't have a desire to do that.
Right.
And I get it because they do. They drive way better. And if there's enough people that still want to do something, it can stay going, right. And yeah, I don't know. It's cool to try to predict it, but we don't know.
Yeah. And that's one thing I really like about no prep though is, man, we just show up, keep it dry. It doesn't matter how hot it is. We don't have those track condition, but I mean, radials, you get in the summertime, you just have such a short window of being able to race. But, it is, I say that, but at the same time, sitting in dig or die, 30 cars back, and 100-degree heat is brutal with the sun out. I mean, in July.
No, yeah, we tend to try to not race a bunch in the.
Right, that's smart.
Yeah, I like the beginning and the end of the season.
I'm stupid.
So
I just show up. I'm like, oh, there's a race.
Yeah, let's get it.
The wife has told me many times, just because there's a race doesn't mean you have to go.
Yeah,
I'm like, what do you mean I don't have to go? Of course I've got to go.
That's funny. So what? Let's change gears a bit and what your new Mustang?
Right.
What's your goal? What's your plan with that? What are you doing to it? Like,
yeah. So the old Mustang, the OG Mustang, we retired. It was factory suspension. Of course, everything was in the different spots, but it was driving a little ill. So I wanted to build a back half car. And so we built a back half car, and that one worked out pretty good until I wrecked it a few months back in Texas. Shouldn't have never wrecked the car. It was my fault. Usually it is the driver's fault, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it was avoidable. It was on the Street Outlaws Farm Truck and Asian show. We drove all the way to Texas, 1,300 miles each way, and got there, and the car got out of shape, and I stabbed it to get back in it to see if I could run them down. And when I did, it turned left, and so smacked the wall, destroyed the car. And so luckily I've got some great friends. Randy and Donald, they found a car that was mostly done, and so they had the car bought while we were on the way back. And so we're going to team up on this car. We're taking. I've got a big block. I went and bought a big block, so it's going to be a big block Power Glide, 118 turbo in that chassis. Uncle Mike is what we call him, Mike Richardson down at Wilmington. Has got some awesome Tin Soldier stuff on the back half. Got your rear end that we're putting in it. And so this is going to be a team effort car that is going to be purpose built. We're sliding the motor way back, so it's not going to be factory floor, factory firewall. Should be full tube chassis essentially, but with good weight bias. Our goal is to get it 50-50 with the big block with no weight in it. And then, going to dig or die, on the backside, we'll just throw a few 100 pounds in the back to get the bias where we want it. But we should, if everything works out, we should be able to run really fast at War in the Woods and all the front side races. I mean, running with you, you're planning on going 4.0s this year. I'm just saying.
I don't know if we're going to have
But we got to step up. We got to go faster. And so probably what's going to happen with the motor that's in the car now in the Saturn, that motor and transmission is probably going to go back in the OG car. And then, so I'm hoping what we'll have is 2 cars, and we can have one car for the real fast for the top tier stuff. And then if there's any fallback classes, stock floor, stock firewall, we can get the old car
like
in that one.
True street style
That's
or something
right.
like that.
That's probably what we're going to try to do.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's the game plan. Right now, the pockets is empty though.
Yeah.
The pockets are empty.
John just came seeing us. He ain't got no money right now.
The pockets are light, but they're always light.
Oh, I have to check. We're going to check his pockets, Rick, when he leaves. Yeah,
right. Still got that cash, right? But yeah, it's crazy, man. But we'll see how it goes. We're excited. This year, I think we're going to be the test and tune champions. With the Saturn, which we may be able to go. But you talked about experience earlier. I'm like 90% sure we got a first round duck at dig or die, but we're going to be a dig or die because it's the experience.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that's like same thing with Jeff's race up at man. We had a great time when we went up there at Brown County. That track is like a throwback track, man. And so I want to the Saturn may be okay there. So we're going to try to hit a couple of those up this year.
That's cool.
But we're going to be picking and choosing. We got a lot of racing happening. Randy's car, we're fixing to freshen his motor. And so we'll be doing radial stuff with his. And my other buddy, Donald, he's got another radial car with a Coyote motor.
Oh, cool.
So we'll have it out with same time when Randy's is out with the Coyote stuff.
When are you trying to have the new Mustang out?
The new Mustang, I talked to Mike on the way up here. He said we should have a roller. I mean, we're taking the rear end housing today. He's like, dude, if you bring me the rear end housing, he's already got all the 4-link stuff done. And he said, hopefully a roller in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, cool.
But then that puts me behind the ball because the motor's not ready yet. So I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Hold on. You need to pump the brakes.
Yeah.
But hopefully August or September, maybe end of the year is the goal to have the new one out. I think the new one's going to be a rocket.
Yeah. Well, I mean, big block turbo is, never a bad combo.
No, it's got potential as long as I don't screw it up.
I think really like that's like a big block, standard big block with a turbo is probably if you're talking of high horsepower combos, it's definitely the most economical.
I think so too. And that's what I got a good deal on the motor. Of course I bought it used and we're just freshening it up essentially. And it's basic. It's 4-inch stroke, 4.600 bore, 532 cubic inches with a set of AFR 357s. But those heads flow. I think they were like right at 400 or a little bit over 400 CFM. When you pair that with a 118 turbo, it's going to make some power.
Yeah, that thing should make some steam.
It should make some power. The goal is to be able to run, 175, 180 on the front side, which I think that's what it's going to take to beat Frank.
Yeah.
But, but like when Tommy, at the pad and those surfaces, you can't run 175 or 180 down there.
Yeah.
But he's got a very versatile car. But, the Corvette is probably one of the top tier cars out there.
That thing's fast.
Have they lost any at all? That they've won about every race they've been in.
They've lost a few times. They went out at Armageddon. They lost. They won a few rounds. Right. They did well. Right.
They didn't win it.
Yeah, and then I don't know. I don't know all of it, but
right.
You got and that's what I'm kind of talking about. I think that what we're about to see is you're going to see a bunch more cars like that.
Absolutely.
And, I talk on the phone every day, right? I kind of know what a lot of people are doing. And there is a lot of the radial style guys that are kind of, coming to do this. They're changing their car over so they can, that have similar power plants of, the Proline Hemis and, stuff like that. The real gangster stuff.
Right.
And then I think, even like, a lot of the MPK guys, like regardless of what happens with that, some of them are really racers. You look at Scott Taylor, like Scott just wants to race, right? Like even when he's not filming or doing whatever, he's racing that, racing his car somewhere.
No, that's right.
So there's guys like that. You got, Todd Spears, that thing's rowdy. There's, and Casey Max, Ron's making some more upgrades. And I think that field of real gangster cars, there's going to be a lot more of them.
I think so too.
And which is cool, right? I think that's great. It's going to continue to push the evolution of where you want it to be and, or where maybe we don't want it to go, but yeah,
it's definitely going faster. It ain't slowing down. There's nothing slowing it down right now.
Yeah,
and I think you're right. It's like we're spending the cash to money we don't have to go faster and faster.
Yeah,
and that's what a lot of people are. And so it's going to be crazy. I think this year we'll see how it goes. We're just in February. There's a lot of cars coming out. I know they'll I guess. When's the first big no prep race up here front side? Is it one of Jeff's races?
So Happy's doing a race at Edgewater, which is the track that Brad and I promote at. So we basically gave Happy our deal,
Okay,
basically.
gotcha.
So that's going to be at the end of March.
That's going to be completely bare concrete, though, right?
No, that's at Edgewater. So that's on
okay.
it's an actual like front side with rubber,
Oh,
right?
okay, gotcha.
And then he's got that bare concrete race.
Okay.
I forget what the date of that is.
Right.
We're planning on going to Texas for Small Tire Gangsters. I think that'll be fun.
Oh yeah.
And too, man, it just depends on what happened the week before. You know, on these surfaces, like sometimes, you know, if they have, you know, maybe they had a radial race the weekend before, it's like, you know, they may scrape the track, do whatever, but you know, after 300 foot, it's still really good, right? Which like, you know, a twin turbo small block, like what Frank's got, or you know, a Proline Hemi with whatever on it, like that really benefits those guys, right? Because they can really, you know, pour on the power out there. They have the power to be able to do it. So something that you can. And you'll find this with your big block. It's like something that you can consistently apply power to all the way to the finish line.
Right.
Is really what you kind of need, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, the little small blocks. I mean, the basic small blocks with turbos are similar to a nitrous combination. You know, you got to get it early.
Yeah.
And then, you know, that's where the big power stuff really shines. Is they ain't got to get it early. They can get it mediocre. And then just run you down. Yeah. Which that's what. Even in class racing back in the day, that's what we used to do to the nitrous cars. Yeah. You know, turbo cars, same thing, you know, because it's a weight and a horsepower thing. Yeah. And like you said earlier, power potential, you know, that's where a lot of people struggle with, you know, the rule makers. But yeah, man, it's going to be an exciting year. Next year, I expect this year to be, you know, we're going to look stupid all year because even with the new car coming out, if we can get it out in, you know, August or September, we're going to have the new car blues at least for a couple months. I imagine.
You'd be all right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I like to think we're smart racers, and we do the best, but it takes a lot of testing.
It does,
you know, and that's one of the things. You know, having a job during the week, and you know, managing a couple other cars, we just won't have a lot of time to get that testing in. So it'll take us a few months to get there. But maybe by the Christmas dig or die. Hopefully we'll have the new car out with the big block. And of course that's one of those that it's like, okay, well, big block with 118 at dig or die is pointless, you know, because it'll never, I mean, it'll probably have to run on 5 or 6 pounds of boost. I mean, you know, no boost hardly. Yeah. I mean, just because the surface is so bad. Yeah, I've never been there, so I don't know how, like, you know, you got to come at some point. It's it's an experience. Yeah, it is. You know, it's a wild experience. Yeah, that's cool. Worst surface in the country. That one in Darlington. Yeah, I think it wasn't hard for you to like we did one like middle of the track deal, but the track was really bad, and you know, I think we went like a 6.0 or something. And I was like, man, I don't want to go this slow. Like, I just. Was that hard for you to get? I mean, you've been really fast. Oh, so. Yeah. I mean, we've been really fast. Darlington and Rockingham is the fastest filling 590s you'll ever go in your life because it is like skating the whole way. You know, you got the front end jacked all up. I mean, and it still runs a pretty big mile per hour. I mean, I still run 140 mile an hour, but the ET's not there. Yeah. That's what last Christmas. You know, mine went wheels up at the finish line. We had the great big wing on it, had a lot of attack on it. My wing, something was the matter with my wing. It was really heavy. I mean, so that didn't, you know, help the leverage. Yeah. We poured lead in my wing, of course, to get it heavy. And so we jacked that thing up, put a lot of angle in it, and it was. And it actually worked. It worked. Yeah, that's right. It didn't pull a Ryan because I didn't have a hood on it. And, you know, I got lucky. We didn't blow over like Ryan did. Yeah. But, you know, 140 mile an hour out, that is just sketchy as all get out. But you got walls on each side. So it's a little, I feel better than on the street, I think I would feel. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting though. I mean, but it is slow. I mean, ET wise. Yeah. ET wise is slow. Yeah, no, that's a good mile an hour for that. Yeah, it'll run a decent mile per hour, but it feels faster to me in the car. Yeah, that's cool. Well, you got any like closing thoughts for us, or what do you want to leave us with? You know, man, I don't know. I mean, I really appreciate y'all getting me up here. This has been fun. This has been exciting. I love touring the shop, man. This is awesome.
Thank you.
The shop is really cool. Finally getting to meet you in person. I got to meet Brad when we were in Texas.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I didn't get to talk to him but a minute. I think I wrecked my car right after I met him. Maybe that was
it was Brad's fault.
Right, it's Brad. Yeah, there you go. It's Brad's fault. We'll have to send that one on Brad. But yeah, man, this is awesome. I'm looking forward to the season. If anybody comes out, they see us out there, just come see us, come say hello. We got a good group of guys. We all like talking, and we love being racing. It's fun stuff, man.
That's cool. No, and I'm stoked to be able to have some parts on your car, and we've already had a little bit of stuff on some of your stuff, but but I'm really happy to get to help you guys and be a little bit more part of your program, and
definitely looking forward to the rear end stuff. And that's what we put on Randy's car last year. The low prep brackets.
Yeah,
freaking amazing. I mean, they work. I mean, they are point on. I mean, they work phenomenal.
Thank you.
And so I'm excited to have them on there. And like you said, so I can ring you up, and say, hey man, check this out. What do you think about these numbers? What do you think? Because y'all are the professionals. I mean, y'all are doing it. I'm just a hobbyist, so I have to take the advice of the professionals. I'm a hacker on everything I do.
Yeah, no, you do, like, then that's the heart of drag racing, right? And which is cool. And like, man, we're no different than nobody else. Like, we just, we decided to do this for a living. So our garage got a little bit bigger out of necessity. Right. And, we're lucky that so many awesome people support us, and just all you guys, just people that run our products that go out there and do well and are able to give us feedback, and we can make our stuff better. And like, man, that's what it's about. Like, I have a lot of the same heart as you. Like, I want to see people do well, not spend money in the wrong places. Like, because the cheaper that we can get you out on the racetrack, the more likely that you are to actually go race.
You're going to go racing and continue to race.
That's great.
But I mean, it's amazing, man. Y'all are definitely, racers, and that's what there used to be a couple companies built for racers by racers or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good logo, a good mantra to have, I guess, because that's what y'all do. I mean, y'all have seen what works, and, y'all can save people money by, helping them get the right parts the first time. It is a spending game, It really is. It's people that just go buy stuff. Just randomly, it's just crazy how much money they can waste.
Absolutely. Yep. And that car will never get off the jack stands.
Jack stand. There you go. I don't like being part of the jack stand mafia.
Yeah.
Don't like it at all.
That's cool. Well, man, we appreciate you so much for making time to come up and talk to us. If you haven't already, please go to John's channel, like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. And if you haven't done that for us, we would appreciate it. So, have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching.
Appreciate it, guys.